So I just want to go back to this second stage in terms of the development of not only just morality, but of also responding to demand or the requirements of giving it, or the father force, or dealing with. Now you're moving away from the nurturing elements. You've been nurtured through the full development of a first stage. Now you're responding to demand, to give, to require. The world requires, social responsibility requires the demand of life.
The injunctive side. Well, let's go back and review a little bit about what Adidas says about the injunctive. He says as soon as a child can say no, slamming that spoon from 18 months. Reproachment is the psychological demarcation. When this child realizes that he's alone, and then he runs back to mom. Oh, I am alone. I want it. No, go back to mom. So that moment, he says, you can begin to demand, no, you can't bang the spoon on the table. If you do, you'll have to leave our room, okay? And then come back as soon as you want to sit like us. So, and that's the easy. Do it easy. They can begin to do that, respond to an injunctive demand to go beyond the animal nature themselves at 1.5. He says if you do that compassionately and slowly and realizing that discipline is a long process of adaptation, then by 4.5, they can, hey, quit throwing the fit by fist, just come on, we can do it. Not that they will always do it, but they can do that more stably if that process is continued. So this, there is a preponderance in the first stage of life for nurturing, and it's grown to where that can accept father force or challenging force or injunctive force. And now that's in the second stage, it is pretty balanced. So it's not that it was absent before. It's a process that begins at 18 months, matures in the first stage. Now it's part of the equal stage.
And a characteristic of that injunction would be agreements and
good way, good point.
Kind of like, okay, we don't do it this way because you start making agreements with the second stage.
That's right. Because it's an energy dimension. An agreement is an energy thing. Rather than this. And then the other thing about injunctive is, like you said, you can let them see themselves that when they feel rejected, they tend to reject. You can be greater than that. You can go, oh, I feel rejected. Oh, it's okay. Hey, you want to come over to my house next Thursday instead? You know, you can still, oh no, all right, well, maybe I'll see you around school. You know, you don't have to reject because you feel rejected. You can demand that the child adapt to that.
Well, I was reminded, because I've taught so many years.
And do it in the mirror at the same time.
I was reminded of middle school, when I taught so many years in middle school, that from one period of the day, and I'm reminded of Adida's humorous play on various vitals and peculiars and solids. It says that peculiar, which is, we're talking about a second stage development here of ascended energies and higher energies and emotional energies and enthusiasm and things. A characteristic of a peculiar is somebody who doesn't know whether to commit suicide or go bowling. But in middle school, it's like the world is disastrous in the second period in science, and then it's wonderful and great in the fourth period of math. It changes, you know, boom, boom, boom. You can go from one extreme to the other because of this kind of, you're now so...
You're utterly convicted by the moment's energy, and the liability or the weakness is to be utterly absorbed in doing anything in the moment. And it's also its liabilities relationally in the second stage is that second stagers, as adults who have not matured beyond this stage, can be too into something.
And make a whole philosophical system out of making lunch.
Exactly. Or just too into anything and you exclude others by being too into things. Right. Or, that's one expression of it. The other way of doing that same thing is to be too dreamy and in your own world of painting or imagination or fantasy world and exclude others. Being passionate is great. Being dreamy and artistic is great. If you do it to the exclusion of others, that's where that kind of energetic embeddedness, weakness shows itself.
Right. And when we're speaking about these middle school kids, these same characteristics and personality
Later
traits,
elementary.
and later elementary, if they're not fully matured in the second stage of life, these same kinds of high school, kinds of middle school, kinds of adaptations are now manifested in politics, in world, wherever this character now develops as an adult. Down here at these kind of foundational feeling foundations are manifested on almost what we'll see on global, political, military, business world kinds of interactions.
Right. They call it the logic of the psyche, psychology. and because this is the anima, this is the soul, this is the energy of the being. So it has, and of course, in Latin that is anima, so how you are animated and how the world is animated has its root in this limbic foundation. So it's why Socrates said, whatever you want to think about whatever system you want to think about, who cares? Take care of your soul. Take care of your feeling being. There's your root to your problems, because if you're rested at the body, released in your feeling in an ordinary way, what you're going to think is going to be far truer and more useful and relevant and harmonious than you would if you were weak in body, knotted in feeling.
So now we still have this physical development, which is now the hormonal development. We have a sexual character developing. We have an emotional feeling, puberty. We have hormones developing. We have permanent teeth developing.
That all happens in the second stage from one end to the other. So hormonally, the second stage would, the onset of it would be, not begins, but onset, it's begins at the end of the first stage. There's an overlap in there. It would begin with the hormonal change in the body that you lose your primary teeth and begin having permanent teeth. The next hormonal sign or signal is that the fulfillment of that biologically hormones is that onset of puberty. So, and then of course there's overlap there too. So how you think is how you feel is is going to affect how you think.
Right, and also part of that is also now you're identifying as a character, whether it be a male character or a female character.
The energy of being male, the energy of being female.
Right, right.
So,
and if you're conflicted with still this first stage development, you might be weak with your...
Without rested in the feeling that comes up for you. So it's and there's no purity in this either. There's no pure male, pure female. The and then the hormonal signals of that, testosterone and estrogen are neither absolute in the body.
No, but you are predominantly a male or a female character, and so there you can form your male identity with other...
Most of us are.
with other males. You're not completely threatened in your own character, so therefore you can interact with the male energy.
As males.
As male characters.
Right. Well, whether there's another fear arises, as the Upanishads point out again. But the onset of any developmental phase is usually signed by a rejection of either the previous or something else. So boys and girls usually think the other gender is yucky. Boys and girls yucky. Girls, boys are yucky. So that's a sign of that energetic development. Now a phase, while the onset is signed by the rejection or of either the previous or something didactic within that.
Could I just say, because this is key, and of all my study with Adida and all the study, is this rejection of this previous adaptation is paramount of developmental stages of what we're talking about. And so I thought maybe you could speak a little bit about this rejection and what that signifies,
Mm-hmm.
because as this developmental phase is part of the evolution of this body,
Mm-hmm.
because we're speaking about a bodily based transition here. We haven't quite gotten into the mental development yet.
Third stage we'll get to soon.
Right. So,
Go ahead.
because your sexual character, now
Mm-hmm.
this is going to show itself in what would be called the Oedipal problems
Mm-hmm.
that really stem from this first stage of,
Feeding, eating, and all that.
right,
Mhm.
and showing itself with relationships in
Mhm.
terms of, you know, boy-girl
Mhm.
relationships,
Mhm.
female-male. Although we are now developing as a character in a male character or a female character,
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't fully worked through these phases, as you pointed out, as the vertical, because we're moving...
Our vertical development will be very shaky.
shaky. You won't have the foundation, the base,
Right.
to work with this more intense, because we're intensifying development, we're intensifying energy, we're expanding the energy, we're more than just this.
Mhm.
Now we're developing heart, we're developing connection to heart energy, feeling
Well,
energy.
You said a lot there.
Yeah.
I agree that what you need to see this as a whole spectrum, from losing primary teeth to the onset of puberty and the hormonal balance. In doing that, you let go to feeling. Your feeling flows. The maturation of the second stage is one of the things it's signed by is a strong sense of self. Now, I would use the word, continue to weave the word gender feeling into the sexual feeling, because it's more about you're being a boy or a girl than what we would call sexuality. Mm-hmm. Although, yes, that word applies, but as long as you realize we're not talking genital
Intercourse.
intercourse, anything like that. Just the gender sense. What you rejected, then you reintegrate. So at the end of the second stage of life, girls and boys should be in classic iconic form. Should be yeah, she's a girl. So no yuckies.
Right.
And so that's going to be like signs of both the terminus, the beginning, and the terminus of the second stage. So
the maturity of that.
The maturity of it, of that. So you'll see all of those feelings go from the bird hatching to the bird flying.
And the expression of your feeling, you can feel that you can say you
Absolutely.
love,
Right.
and you're not embarrassed by it. You're
Right.
not, as many children as they get dropped off to school and the mother says, "Give me a kiss," and the boy, "I'm not going to kiss you, mommy," you know. That's that sense of no, you know. It's like you lose that ability to
You reintegrate that which you had rejected.
Right.
As you adapting to a
and
new
then
feeling.
that you can play that over and over
You can see that in a million different ways.